Good afternoon. My name is Mary O'Connor. I chair the Icons Rowing chapter, and first I want to acknowledge some of my Icons Rowing leaders that are in the audience: Val McLean, Ann Simpson, and Pat Spratlin-Edom that you met earlier today. Thank you, ladies, for all your support. We have a larger group, but they're here today. I'm honored to introduce this session on law because law reflects our values. One of my fundamental values is that girls and women have equal status and equal opportunity in our society. That opportunity that women's sports provided me to ultimately be an Olympian has influenced my entire professional career, where I am a minority as one of only 7% of women orthopedic surgeons in the country. And when I started my training, I was one of 3%. Rowing is my sport. U.S. rowing blatantly discriminates against women. It allows any male athlete who identifies as a woman to compete as a woman. Restrictions apply in only two scenarios. First, at the international level, where world rowing rules of testosterone suppression for 24 months at 2.5 nanomoles per liter level applies. And the second for mixed boats, namely a boat of both men and women, in which U.S. rowing requires the boat to be 50% male and 50% female, and Sharon Davies commented on this yesterday. This is the only place in the entire policy where sex, where male and female is used. So in what can only be interpreted as the height of misogyny, U.S. rowing requires sex as an eligibility criteria only when not doing so would compromise fairness for men, okay? Because they could then be competing against a mixed boat, which was 50% men, and maybe a couple females, and maybe some males who identify as women. So that's the only place where sex is specified as an eligibility criteria, when not doing so would compromise fairness for men. And we continue to work on pressuring U.S. rowing to change their very discriminatory policy. So I want to go back to the law, because one law that shaped my life is Title IX. And as a first-year student at Yale University in 1976, I started rowing. I come from a time when there were no teams, sports teams for girls in my high school. I am like a Title IX baby. So I started rowing at Yale, and we had no locker room at the boathouse. Of course, the men's team did. So in what is heralded as the first stand for Title IX in college athletics, my teammates and I stripped in front of the Yale athletic director with Title IX written on our bare chests and backs. Our captain, I'll show a picture tomorrow from it. Our captain read a statement that started with, "These are the bodies that Yale is exploiting." Our story was picked up by the New York Times and the International Herald Tribune, and the university was embarrassed into action, and we had a locker room the following spring. And I just want to, thank you, but I just want to call out the irony. I stripped with Title IX written on my bare chest and backs because we didn't have a locker room. We got a locker room, and now we don't have locker rooms again because all these women no longer have the right to have their own locker room. So it's very, very troubling. And one of the reasons why I've kind of re-engaged in all of this sporting advocacy for women in sports. So law matters, and I'm really delighted to introduce the lawyers that we will have in this session. And the first is Christiana Kiefer. She is senior counsel with ADF, the Alliance Defending Freedom. She's a lead attorney on several U.S. federal cases contesting Title IX and women's sports, including Soleil versus Connecticut Association of Schools, which originated in 2017. Christiana will share recent federal court rulings relevant to the recognition of women and provide some insight on what we can expect for these cases going forward, including ultimately how and when the Supreme Court of the United States will weigh in. Might weigh in, but I think ultimately will need to weigh in. Our second speaker, Bill Bach, was the General Counsel of the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency from 2007 to 2020, and the lead lawyer in the U.S. ADA's investigation of doping by Lance Armstrong and teammates, which broadened into an international investigation of doping in cycling. Bill has collaborated with expert legal teams around the world and has unique insights into the efforts of governing bodies to ensure a level playing field. He has regularly handled cases before the International Court of Arbitration for Sport and served as a sports arbitrator and on boards addressing eligibility and integrity issues for multiple sports organizations. Our third speaker, lawyer Catherine Deves, is here from Australia. Catherine is a lawyer, mother of 3 daughters. She became concerned at the erasure of sex and policy and legislation in favor of gender identity, and what this would mean for the rights of women and girls. In October 2020, Catherine joined forces with women in New Zealand. Where's Ro? Right there. There you are, Ro. And co-founded Save Women's Sports Australasia, when no one in Australia was speaking up for girls and women. In 2022, Catherine was selected as the Liberal Party candidate in Warringah in the federal election. During the campaign, she was subjected to relentless and vicious attacks by the Australian media and members of her own party due to her gender-critical views. While unsuccessful in her political bid, the experience strengthened her resolve as she continues the fight to protect women's sex-based rights. She is now a lead counsel for one of the biggest cases in Australia directly contesting women's sex-based rights. So I'd ask you to join me in a warm welcome for all of our speakers, and we will be starting with Christiana. Thank you so much.